What's up, weirdos? I'm Felicia and I like scary movies, and no offense to 2021, but it did not go well. It did not go well for many of us for many different reasons, but we did get a lot of really freaking good horror movies, so we have something to be grateful for. Now, before we hop in, I'm back on YouTube. This is our first big video of the year, so make sure you hit that subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up, and today I'm going to be giving you my top 10 favorite horror movies of 2021, and I'm going to give some extras at the end, some extra shout outs. I'm going to give you my favorite remake, my favorite sequel, and such. Number 10, we have Lucky, written by Brea Grant and directed by Natasha Kermani. And this is a psychological thriller about a woman who has to defend her house from an intruder night after night after night. And first of all, this is a well-made horror film. It has a lot of suspense and scary moments and great sequences. But the thing that made me put it on my list immediately is that it felt like a movie that was written for a female audience. And I even saw a lot of this on the internet of girls that watched this movie with their boyfriend, and their boyfriends like didn't get it, and it clicked with the women immediately. And that's how I felt when I watched this. Like, it clicked immediately, this idea of female fear, the fears in which we have to live with every single day. And I felt like I connected to that so well and was so taken care of while watching this movie about that. And I just thought it was amazing. Brea Grant is so, she's just like in the horror genre. She is a writer, she's a director, she is an actress, and she also stars in this movie. And I just think she's so fierce. Number 9, we have Censor by Prano Bailey Bond. It takes place in the UK during the video nasty era, and it's about a film censor, a woman who's a film censor, and her life dissolves into a horror movie as she tries to uncover what happened to her sister. I love this movie because it was such an original concept that was executed so well. It felt like this amazing psychological thriller of this woman, you know, spiraling into madness, but framed by someone that watches horror movies for a living and tries to decide the things that need to be taken out because it will hurt the public. And that like whole concept to me, I thought was just genius. Number 8, we have The Empty Man, written and directed by David Pryor. This movie is about a Midwestern town where people start to mysteriously disappear, and the locals think it's because of this urban legend known as the Empty Man. A retired cop investigates and struggles to make sense of the stories because he discovers a secretive group and their attempts to summon a horrific, mystical entity. So this movie probably would have been higher on my list if I had had a chance to rewatch it before making this video, because it is a movie that has so much in it. I really, since I saw it the first time, felt like I needed to watch it again to really take everything in. But it really like has it all, right? It's got an urban legend, the Empty Man, this like entity genius. It has cults, spooky cult stuff, and it has some of the most creative nightmare imagery that I've ever seen. And I'm thinking of one particular thing that happens in the woods that I'm not going to spoil here, but the image and the scare that is in this movie really stuck with me in a real way because it is so unsettling and horrifying. And in this movie, I just feel like I need to watch it again because it's fast, furious, and there's a lot going on. And so anyways, I put it on my list because I genuinely loved it, but maybe it should be higher. I don't know, but for now it's number 8. Number 7, we have Antlers, directed by Scott Cooper and produced by Guillermo del Toro. This is a film based on the Wendigo legend, and it follows a school teacher in a small town in Oregon as she suspects one of her students is suffering from a lot of problems in his home life. But what she doesn't know is that he's harboring a dangerous entity in his house. I've seen a few people online saying they didn't enjoy this movie, but I watched it this week, and this is a sad, slow movie that has one of the best creature designs I have seen in a long time, and also I think so horrifically depicts like so many problems in America. And that's what I think makes it sort of sad and hard to watch. And yeah, overall this movie is just really dark, has some terrifying moments, and definitely deserved a spot on my list. Number 6 on my list is, of course, she had to do it, James Wan's *Malignant*. This is about a woman named Madison who begins to have visions of people being murdered, only to realize the events are happening in real life. I mean, that's just like barely the surface. But I put this on my list because it was the wildest horror movie watching experience of the year. I never knew where this movie was going. It had one of the most ridiculous and unsettling, creepy, scary, but also funny monsters that I've seen in a long time. And it just kind of felt like a power move by James Wan. It just kind of felt like, you know, he did Aquaman and then he was like, you know what I'm gonna do now? Whatever I want. Like, I don't even know that I loved the movie, but I loved the energy and the experience of watching the movie. Does that make sense? But yeah, it's on the list because, I mean, I can't forget it. Number 5, we have Boys from Country Hell, directed by Chris Bogg. It's about a crew of road workers led by a bickering father and son who must survive the night when they accidentally awaken an ancient Irish vampire. This movie is like so Irish. I just love how Irish it is. Now this movie was awesome in so many ways. It's a comedy horror film and yet has so much like heart, and like the first chunk of the movie, it's like sad and emotional and intense and like all these different relationships. And then once the vampire stuff comes in a real way, it is gory, it is brutal, and it is hilarious. With just this like subtle humor that's like, I don't know, it works so well. I just really enjoyed this movie. I needed to get a comedy on this list too because a lot of the movies I talk about are quite dark. But this one is excellent. It's on Shudder. Check it out. All right, in our number 4 slot, we are putting the whole trilogy, the whole Fear Street trilogy right here by Lee Janik, and it is just kind of this magical masterpiece of fun horror. This is based on the book series by R.L. Stine, and it follows a group of teenagers in Shadyside who are terrorized by an ancient evil responsible for a bunch of brutal murders that have plagued the town for centuries. If you didn't see it, it's on Netflix. The first 2 films I think are significantly better than the last. The first one that takes place in the 90s for me had a much more nostalgic, like it made me like giddy in a way because I felt like I was getting everything because I grew up in the 90s. But then the second one that takes place in 1978 I thought was kind of the most well done in terms of it being a horror trilogy. Just like all of the scary aspects were really well done. The acting was great. And then the third one kind of went off the rails in a way that I didn't not like, but wasn't as polished, I'll say. Number 3, Saint Maud. I just love horror movies that are paired with Catholicism. They're just so scary. They're just so scary. Okay, so Saint Maud, written and directed by Rose Glass, is about a newly devout hospice nurse who becomes obsessed with saving her dying patient's soul, but sinister forces from her own sinful past threaten to put an end to her holy calling. This is a woman that is like in a deep and toxic relationship with religion in a way that is so mind-bending and thrilling and just... it's just great. It's a movie that we also had to wait for so long that there was so much anticipation around it. But overall, I loved it. I thought it was so good. I thought the acting was great. It kind of lived up to the expectation for me. Okay, we're in the top 2 now, baby. All right, number 2, we have Night House. This is directed by David Bruckner and stars Rebecca Hall, and it's a psychological thriller about a widow discovering the secrets of her husband's past while living in the house her husband built for her. Now, this movie is so high on my list, and I do wonder if it is because it's the first movie that I saw in theaters since the first lockdown of the pandemic. And that movie-going experience for me was just like, wow. Like, it was so exciting. But I also have to say that the performance of Rebecca Hall in this movie is so specific, nail on the head genius. She's so good. And this movie also, I love psychological thrillers. It's definitely, I think actually, I've been thinking about making a movie about like my top horror movie genres. And psychological thrillers for me are just, I just love it. And then I also just love movies that have like twists and turns in a domestic setting. This movie just kind of checked a lot of boxes for me. I thought it was scary, I thought it was exciting, and I thought it was fun in a dark way. And then number 1 is a movie that I just watched, but I watched it on my TV at home well after everyone else had already seen it. And a movie hasn't made me not want to look at my phone for hours in so long in this kind of real way that it's The Last Night in Soho. It really did everything I needed it to do. This movie was directed by Edgar Wright and is about an aspiring fashion designer who rents a room with a horrifying past. At night, she mysteriously enters the 1960s to follow a wannabe singer. These nightly escapades start full of style and whimsy, but end in a nightmare. This movie is just the music, brilliant. The artistry, the lighting, and the sets are so captivating. The performances of Thomas and Mackenzie and Anya Taylor-Joy are just unmatched. Like, they are working together and separately in this like furious carousel of madness in the 1960s nightclub scene that is just so good. The costumes are amazing. The chase sequences are gorgeous, and really, I said this, I'm sure everyone else has already said it, but like remind me so much of the chase scenes in Suspiria. And not only with like the primary color lighting and flashing of lights and things like that, but just in the way of suspense building. And I'll say Edgar Wright has such an amazing talent for kind of capturing an era through style and like vibes. And the vibes in this, like the aesthetic is incredible, and it's just so good. And then it's all twisty turny at the end. I never saw it coming, and I never do, because I never see a twist coming. I am the greatest moviegoer because I never see it coming. All right, now let's get into some special shout outs, some different categories. These things, they're all my favorites. They're all my favorites. Okay, best remake, Candyman by Nia DaCosta. I thought it was amazing. I mean, I did a whole series on the Candyman films and the new one, so I'll link those down below in the description box. But I just thought this remake was so good and brought a modern take on this idea of a horror movie that takes place in a city. And I just thought it was so good. Best sequel, one I also just watched, A Quiet Place Part 2. Oh my God. I have never been so stressed out for, 90 minutes or 2 hours or whatever it was in my life. I watched it with my patrons for our movie night, and I was like on the edge of my seat the entire time. Like, we were on Zoom and I was just like, because the way in which they can build tension in those films, like, I thought it was better than the original. Like, and that's really saying something. The acting is so good. It's so scary. It's so scary. The monsters look great. It's just good stuff. Best series, I have 2 shout outs here. Brand New Cherry Flavor. Weirdest thing I've watched all year. Well, maybe besides Malignant. I don't know. But just a great show. Really mind melting in many ways. Really like my aesthetic, if you will. Just great. And then of course, Midnight Mass, Mike Flanagan. He's never not gonna be on my list. If he makes something, it'll be on my list because he's my favorite of all time. And then last I have 2 films that I just want to give shout outs to. I put them under the category of labor of love. So the first one is Psycho Goreman, written and directed by special effects designer Steven Kostanski. And this movie had some of the most creative, magical, intergalactic, terrifying monsters ever. And they all just came out of this man's brain. It felt like a Power Rangers horror movie, 90s sci-fi mashup madness. And it's so much fun. If you haven't seen it, you should just watch it to support what that guy's doing, because it's just wild. And then my last movie I want to give a shout out to, as a labor of love. I don't know. It didn't make my top 10 list, but I really liked it, and I wanted to give a shout out to The Stylist. Written and directed by Jill Gevargizian, which I'm so sorry if I said that so wrong. It's about a lonely hairstylist that becomes obsessed with the lives of her clients and descends into murderous madness. And this one first of all, it's very well done, well acted. The directing is great. I really enjoyed the movie itself, but I also just love the concept of just like, yeah, like my hairstylist knows so much about me and only sees me like a few times a year. And that's just like an interesting, like I can't think of a similar type of relationship that people have with their hairstylist. It's just like kind of strange. It's a good relationship unless, you know, they're a murderer like in this movie. But it's just very interesting. And I just enjoyed a lot of things about this movie I enjoyed. So you should check that one out too. And I think that's it, people. Ringing in the new year. Big old fat video that I'm gonna have to edit down because I talk so much. And we're moving into 2022. So a couple things I want down in the comments of this video. One, obviously I want to hear your top 10, or you know, you can do top 3 if you want to. Favorite films of this year, of 2021. What was on your list? What are the big ones that that blew your mind this year? Like I want to know that. And then also, what are you excited about for 2022? Because I don't even know, other than Scream, which of course, like we're gonna get into later. I don't really even know what's coming out in 2022. I gotta look that up, I guess, but you can let me know in the comments. And that's it. If you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up. It really helps my channel as I'm back on YouTube, baby, and happy to be here. And have a nice Scream. Bye.